Cool. Yeah. Cool. Share my screen. Great. All right, let's give it another 30 seconds. This is the SSV developer call number 3. Today is Monday, May 8th, 2023. We have a ton of crazy material to cover, and I want to give everybody a chance to filter in. So give it another 10 seconds or so, and I'll run through the agenda and start introducing the speakers. Cool. Well, the beauty of doing these live streams, especially on YouTube, is that you can always go back if you missed anything. But let's get started. There's a crazy amount of material to cover for today. First, we're going to have Lior talking about Jato performance and status and how to run a well-performing operator. Then we'll jump over to John. He's created some really cool looking dashboards, and I can't wait to take a look at some of that stuff as well. And it's related to operators metadata from Filedrive, operators dashboard from Spectrum, and then we'll go into some permission to operators material. Then we'll hear from GBeast, and he's going to go over the verified operators committee and talk about the members of the committee. And then he'll start talking about a little bit of how to get involved and how to get yourself kind of ingrained within the SSV network and do some co-promotions. Last but not least, we'll finish with Marko. Marko will be going over the operators tutorials and resources. And with any luck, we'll be able to take a handful of questions and hopefully provide some interesting feedback and insights into how things are going. And yeah, that's a operator call in a nutshell. So without further ado, Lior, why don't you jump in?
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. One moment. All right. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the current status of the Jato testnet. So Jato testnet is alive for 40 days. Woohoo! It's been maturing pretty well. This is our third testnet. Currently, we have 165 active operators with over 1,200 active validators. The overall network performance is 98% of attestation rate and 85% of effectiveness for those attestations. We've been putting a lot of effort to compare and try to improve the network performance. So what we did is we started to measure like best practice setup because we realized that there are some improvements that can be done on the operator side. So for example, in a best practice setup, we reached to 99.3% of attestation rate and 86 of effectiveness. And comparing that to a control group, which in our case is running a stock validator, non-DVT, lighthouse or prism based, and we can see that DVT is performing better. And that's something that we are being strived to reach. And that's like based on our assumption, really maturing to that place because the reason is the fault tolerance, having more blockchain nodes submitting duties, propagating them through the network. So we see better results. So we want to make the whole overall performance of the network to reach to those numbers. And I will discuss about it in a little bit on how to set up a well-performing operator and on what to look for as part of troubleshooting. Jato introduced a lot of things. For example, clusters of more than 4 operators. So now we have clusters of 7 operators, 10 and 13, along with 4 operators. And their performance is even better than the average of 4 operators, as we can see. So that's good news, and you feel free to experience that for yourself by registering 7, 10, or 13 operators. In addition, Jato, recently Lido started to run their testnet. So there are about 40 operators on Lido testnet in different clusters. It just started recently, and there are 6 active clusters right now with the average attestation rate of 99.6 and 88% of effectiveness. So that's like a really phenomenal performance, and that is great. And that shows us that when operators are set up correctly, we can reach a really, really great performance. So and the Lido POC is proving that well. In addition to that, Jato introduced multi-duties. So now on the SSV testnet, we support all the duties, including proposals and sync committees and aggregators and sync committee aggregations. And with average of 98% of performing those duties, we are working on a version that will improve that as well. Here we want to reach 100% on proposals. In sync committees, it a little bit depends on the network of the whole operator network. Jato will introduce, hopefully really, really soon, we are in the final stages of testing MEV support, and it will be released in the upcoming weeks, and it will be great to see how MEV performs on our network. It's very exciting. Yeah, and we released a version recently. We publicly announcing it right now for you guys as the first ones to upgrade it. This is a very important version to upgrade. It improves the performance of the 7, 10, and 13 operators, as well as peer connectivity. I will emphasize about it a little bit when we talk about monitoring. So overall, 40 days of Jato is our best performing testnet. It's the fastest growing testnet that we have in terms of stable performance for our validators. So that's really, really exciting. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to run a well-performing operators. So part of this testnet, we started to talk to more operators and going deep dive and researching what's causing sometimes like a drop in performance. And we identified a few things that I really want to talk with you about them. So first, we'll start talking a little bit about setups. When we have in our documentation recommendation for setting up SSV node, it's a requirement for SSV node only, all right? But SSV node depends on the execution layer and consensus layer, right? So the requirements in our docs are talking about SSV node only, and we really encourage running SSV node separately from the execution layer or consensus layer. It's not possible. Just need to know to consider better on what's the requirements that you need, because the execution layer and consensus layer are sometimes have peaks and intensive on resources like CPU spikes and memory, and that can affect SSV node as well, as long as disk usage. So when you want to run everything in one server, that can work, but your performance can be not great if you don't have enough resources. So my suggestion is the best practice would be to separate the two. And second, if you decide to run them on the same server, is to make sure that you read really well what the requirements that each of those containers, I guess, that are running on the same server requires. So how much consensus layer recommended, their CPU and memory, and the same thing for execution layer, and which type of disk to run. So to make sure that they all can run on the same server. The second main thing that we noticed is, and I want to say that it's very similar to how the consensus layer works in terms of networking, is that you might not have to open your ports, and you still will see connecting to peers. But for better performing and reaching the right peers and to be discoverable for other peers, it's important to open the UDP and TCP. ports, which in our case is 12,001 and 13,001. UDP and TCP are corresponding. Note that right now, if you want to change the default ports, you need to change them in our SSV node config files and not just do the mapping on the Docker mapping. And we will work to improve that as well, to support that. But currently, if you want to change the port, so you need to change it on the SSV node configuration. The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of monitoring. So up until now, it was, we were saying like, hey, just run the node. But I think it's very important for you guys to be a professional operator. Of course, like for you who plan to go on mainnet, is to be familiar with our Grafana that we provide. And I want to talk about the Grafana a little bit and the information that it gives to you and how it will make it much more simple for you to understand and debug the reasons why your operator is not performing at all or performing not great. So I'm just going to show an example of the Grafana dashboard. So we have two dashboards. One is more of like on the node itself, how it's performing. And the second one is how the performance of the validators that you run performing. So the node dashboard looks like that, and it goes from top to bottom, where the top is the basics. We can see for the node, if the beacon node is okay, and ETH1 node is okay, the execution layer node is okay, and if the SV operator is up and running. If the beacon node or the execution layer, are not synced, we will see here the indication for that. Next to it, for you that like to add alerts, it's like just a simple graphs that you can use to trigger alerts if you want to know when something is off, so to be triggered for that. So that's why we added them as well here. Those are the three on the right. After the node health, there is the resource usage panel where it goes by memory usage. So things you want to see here is if the memory is reaching the top of what you configured for your node. And here it's much easier to see because if you have a dedicated server for your operator node, you can say, okay, if you have like 4 gigs of RAM, then you're pretty fine, right? And so on and so on. It gets a little bit harder when you have other nodes running on the same machine. Later on goes CPU, same thing, disk usage, and the networking, like how much traffic goes in and out from your node. And the next part is something I want to talk. Also, what we see here is the networking discovery and a little bit about the network topology, because I had a few questions about it and I want to clarify about it. Okay, so by default, we can see the default is 60 peers. We can see that we are connected to 60 peers on our node, but similar to the way Ethereum works, it's a PubSub protocol, and we use subnets. Ethereum have 64 subnets for attestations, and we use 128. It's totally different than the way Ethereum works. We take the validators that are registered and deterministically assigned to one of the 128 subnets, okay? And what you can see here on the graphs, that's really important. What you can see here on this graph here on the subnet peer count, you can see this on the left, the subnets and the subnets that you're subscribed to, right? The subnets that you're subscribed to is the subnets that you have a validator there. So I'm repeating, and I want to clarify it. If you have operator and you have one validator for your operator, you will have one subnet to be subscribed to, all right? And what's important is to know that you have peers that are connected to that subnet. So if, for example, I have a subnet number 2 that I'm subscribed to, okay, I can see that I'm connected to 12 peers. Learning that the best performance goes from above 6 peers per subnet. So you want to see that for every subscribed subnet that you have, you want to see that in the connected peers, you have at least 6 peers that you connected to. This actually means that every duty or every message you send and receive with the corresponding peers that are managing the validators on that subnet, gonna reach to you, the message is gonna get faster to you and from you to the other peers that are in your cluster. The subnet peer distribution is just a timeline for the peers that you subscribe to and how many peers you have throughout the timeline. This will allow us to say, like, for example, to troubleshoot, if we have a validator that we see that is not performing well with the other operators that are running it, you can see that if for some period of time you had for that subnet less peers. So if you see like the drop here, in this graph, you see that the minimum is sometimes reaching 5, but most of the time it's over 6 and above. So that's what you want to see in the subnet peer distribution, is that you see like a good place where most of the time you have over 6 peers for all the subnets that you're subscribed to. You see here a lot because this is operator that have around 500 validators, and that's the reason like it's subscribed to all the peers. If you want to go and deep dive to one of the subnets, you just press on it, and then you can see like the history of that subnet and how many peers were connected, pressing on the legend on the right. So that's the main thing. Like first thing, once you launch an operator and you set up Grafana, you want to see that you reach to 60 peers. That should happen pretty fast. Let's say in the first 10 minutes, this should like go to 60. There are some advanced configurations for the ones that want to be like more to increase the numbers of peers. There's configuration in the node where you can override it in the config or using an env param to increase the amount of peers you are running, but we suggest not to go lower than the default, which is 60 currently. That's basically the most important part from that. On the bottom is like the peers that you are connected to. You can see some basic information, but that's less important for troubleshooting your node. Mostly is the peer count and the subnet distribution. That's very important. When you go lower, it's a little bit some statistics and metrics like what's the rate of the messages that you receive on average every 2 minutes, and how many messages you send, and then the distribution based on subnets. This is a little bit more low level debugging if needed, but you mostly want to go and look on the network discovery and of course the resource usage and the node health that we covered at the beginning of this display of the dashboard. It's very imperative for debugging. It's very important that you guys set up the dashboard and get familiar with that. The second dashboard is a little bit more like for statistics, something to learn on how really SSV network works, right? So here we have on the top is the number of validators you have that are yours and how many total you have and how many active. Don't look on the slash. It's some test imported validators we added. And then based on, we're not going to cover all the duties here, but for each duty, we have some metrics that are very deep level. I'm going to go through them quickly. And if you guys feel like this is something interesting you wanna learn more about, then feel free to give some feedback about it. And we're either gonna do it on a separate call or we're gonna maybe like publish some blog about it. But basically what we can see here is a breaking down of how a duty is being performed and on which rate and how long it takes. So here is the whole duty flow. This is the main one. And we can see like on average, how long it takes for the duty to be executed, for attestation duty to be executed. And you can see that 48%, for example, are between half a second to 1 second, where it reaches the consensus and submitting the duty. Of course, it's from the node perspective, right? From the operator. And then it goes break down to the consensus. I'm not going to deep dive into it, but the consensus have basically three phases. The proposal, it's when the leader proposes the input data to be reached a consensus upon. Attestations is the input value. Then there's the prepare stage, and then the commit. And here we can see how much the consensus layer. So that's a breakdown from the main duty flow graph, which is combined. The main one is combining the consensus and the post-consensus duration times. And here you can see is how long it takes to an average take from the beacon node, the attestation data, which we reach consensus for, and how long it takes on average to submit the data back to the beacon node after we reach the consensus time, and so on for the other duties. You can feel free to go over it on your own. But this is mostly like for the technological enthusiasts who wants to monitor this part. It's very interesting and have a lot of insights about it. For example, if we see that our cluster have low performance or low effectiveness, we can go and understand on which phase or what's the reason that's causing it, right? So for example, if I'm an operator and I can see consistently that I'm not performing well compared to the others, maybe my beacon node is struggling, and I can see that like getting attestation data takes longer than it's supposed to. Yeah, so that's it. To set up those dashboards, we have it in our docs and also in our GitHub. I think it's pretty detailed, and if you guys feel there's something can be improved, so feel free either to open an issue or give us some feedback. But it describes on how to set up Prometheus if you don't have a Prometheus set up, what's the health checks, and how to set up the node dashboard and the performance dashboard on your Grafana. So that's about it. That's how we really recommend as best practice to do so when you want to run operator and make sure that it's performing well. Otherwise, besides that, we started to work on some troubleshooting and common logs and what they say, and which logs are, we're constantly working on improving our logs to be more insightful. So in the upcoming versions, you'll see more and more improvements, and some logs will be, some redundant logs will be removed. But feedback is very important for us. That's what we're focusing right now. And we want that our operators will know how their operator node is performing, and when it's not performing well, what they need to do besides like contact us. So if you feel like something is missing, this is where the feedback that we need from you. I think that's it from my end. Thanks a lot.
Nice, really thorough, great work. Next up is John.
Hey everyone, share my screen. Yeah, you should see it now. Yeah, so I'll talk about two things that have to do with operators for the call today. We'll start with operator metadata. So for those of you who know or not, metadata is data that is not inherently part of the network mechanisms. That means everything that Lior was just presenting, that is the data that the network needs to work. Any data above that is metadata. So things like logo, description, name. Why do we even have metadata, the SSV network? That's for you guys, the operators. So you're all trustworthy, you're great businesses, and you want to show it out. So validators need some reference between a network entity that is shown in an ID or P2P address to some name or logo or description. So up until now, metadata was stored in the SSV Network Explorer backend. It was manually inserted by the great marketing team for V1 and V2. And in V3, we introduced naming. We also had it in the contract back in the other networks, but that was more centralized and that was not mainnet ready. So with Jato being a release candidate to mainnet, we worked along with the grantee Filedrive, great team that worked on a gateway to IPFS that will store all the metadata on IPFS rather than contracts or a centralized backend. The good thing about it is you save a lot of gas and you get much more flexibility. And the bad thing about it is it's not on-chain on Ethereum, but that's sort of the cost. So they built a great product that sort of works like this. So you as an operator log into the Filedrive operator gateway. You log in using your owner address. So the same address you registered the operator with. You edit or write your metadata, and that is for now all of these and more. I'll show you in a second. That goes and gets stored on IPFS. There's a validation that works with your owner address. That means only the owner of the operator may submit or change the operator metadata. From there on, it's a lot of things could work with IPFS. So for now, the applications that are going to use it is the SSV web app and Explorer and the Spectrum StakeStar operator dashboard that I'll be demoing for the team. But the use cases are endless. Once it's on IPFS, anyone can use that data wherever they want. It could be a top 10 list. It could be just a hall of fame of operators. Whatever products anyone wants to build, it's on a centralized storage system. So that's sort of regarding the idea behind operator metadata in the network. I'll run through a quick demo. So this is my operator ID 141. It's registered to my wallet. Let's say I want to change the name and give it a logo. I will only show the write method. We won't see the read method since it's not yet implemented in the web app. So I'll jump over to the Filedrive gateway. I'll connect my MetaMask. So this is just a simple signature and nothing else, no transactions. Now you see I have the same wallet connected. And then I'll go and search for my operator. 141 is the ID. Filedrive gets synced to the contract. So that means it always knows the owner address according to the ID, just like we saw in the web app, which represents the contract. If I go and edit, I'll have all of these fields ready. Name, description, consensus, client, execution, cloud provider. You can choose out of popular ones. You can enter ones you like that don't exist. Location of your servers, stuff like that. Then Mev Boost, which is a very important component when we're looking at mainnet, letting your validators know what are you using. So I might be using Bloxroute, I might be using Flashbots, or I might be using everything. This is very important to show your validators what you're using. You can add a logo, whatever. I'll just jump here to where I already pre-filled this. So this is my operator. It's a very, very simple signature. So I'll be confirming a signature that throws all of this data. You can see it here. Everything that I just input will be stored on IPFS once I sign this. Success. And this Filedrive are already providing an API to pull this from. Or if I want, I can jump to IPFS and get to the exact file. That's really depends on what sort of use case you have. But this is the standard of metadata for the whole network. And we're trying to make it decentralized and accessible to everyone. And Filedrive are the great people behind making this nice and accessible. So I think that's everything for Filedrive Gateway. Cool demo of a product that's going to come out that is going to utilize this technology is StakeStar dashboard. So StakeStar are a great community member. They're working on a few micro grants. This is one of them, and they're working on the StakeStar pool, and they're longtime operators. And they're working on a grant that will build this. This whole dashboard is actually for you, the operators. So this is in order to show yourself in the network, something that is less technical than the Explorer and a little more fun to watch. So it's got two. Sorry. It's got two main pieces. The one is just searching for operators and list, sort of like we have in the web app today. The other piece is the operator page. So this is exactly just whatever I entered in Filedrive will be shown here to everyone in the world. And the other side of it, which is really nice, and this is also thanks to Stan that worked on a node tracker. This page will track all the active nodes in the network and show statistics regarding client distribution, geographic distribution. So see execution clients, consensus clients. What I'm showing now is a prototype since they're still in progress, but the team's doing a great job, I can say. And it's all in order to make the network more visible and individual operators more visible. So I think just to summarize everything regarding metadata, there's a lot on the operator side that needs to be done. You have to update it. You have to keep it true and very correct. And yeah, on our side, we're trying to implement it everywhere we can. So that's with regards to metadata. Last thing I'll talk about today is permissioned operators. So I think we mentioned this back when we launched Jato, that we're incorporating permissioned operators. Permissioned operators is basically letting operators whitelist or define a whitelist of their own. There's a lot of use cases for this: staking services, staking pools, even individual operators that want to maybe cut fees with their validators and have business agreements that are off-chain. So this unlocks a lot of use cases for operators. I'll be showing two sort of demos. One is how it's going to look in the UI that's going to be implemented a little farther down the line, but just to get the idea. And the other is how you can do that right now through a contract. So this is, again, a prototype. This is my operator block staking. If I want to make it permissioned, I'll go to the access settings. I'll make it permissioned, and then I'll pick the address that is able to register validators to this operator. That means only this address may be able to register to this ID. Any other address will be reverted on the contract. I'll update this. I'll see a small logo saying I'm private now or permissioned. This may be changed down the road. I can always change the whitelist, but it can only be a single list. That's for now. And if you really want to test this out and you want to start building a use case around it and the UI is not ready yet, you can jump into the contract. This is a network contract that's in here right now. Write as proxy. There is a method called set operator whitelist. It's very easy. I go and set my operator ID. I set the whitelisted address that is allowed to register to my operator. And then you'll see that no one can register except for that address. So that's it for permissioned operators. There's a lot of uses around this. And again, feedback, as Lior said, and ideas would be great to hear. And just let us know, how are you using this? Will let us have further thoughts on how we can improve this and maybe make it even more useful in the future. So, yep. I think that's everything on my side. If anyone has any questions regarding metadata, permission operators, we're always on Discord. You can ping me or Ariel, our CPO. We'd love to help out, or if you have any feedback. So thank you, everyone, and back to you, Taylor, I think.
Yeah, nicely done. I mean, you can get a real sense for the scale of work that you guys are doing over there. Looks awesome. Next up is GBeast. A lot of interesting insights coming in.
Hey, hello, everybody. How are you? I'm GBeast. And I'm leading the Verified Operator Committee. So I want to give you a quick rundown about our mandate and what we've been doing and how you'll be able to get involved. We are a committee of largely volunteers. We got representatives from a lot of the companies that are sort of helping to organize this, including Lido and Rated and Blocks. And then myself, I come out of the solo staking space, so I'm a big DApp node enthusiast. So we've got a lot of people covering different spaces. We are trying to build a process by which people can be onboarded to become a verified operator, as well as a scorecard that we can do it fairly and evenly everybody. And so that's been kind of our primary goal since we got started towards the end of last year. And what we've done so far is to reach out to some of the people who've been big operators in the test nets to help them be our guinea pigs, ask them to be our guinea pigs to help us go through the process, evaluate them on the scorecard, and make sure that what we are building is working properly. Currently, we've got about 45 people that we've got in our pre-selected set, and we've been working through those, and we hope to have a good chunk of those verified by launch time. After the launch is when we're thinking we're going to really open this up more to the general public, because by that time we'll have the process ironed out and really know how to do this sort of at scale, if you will. Including what we really want to do is bring on like a KYC partner who can help us verify information so that you have to give less confidential information to us as a committee when you want to get evaluated. If you want to get ready and be in a good position, be a verified operator, I'll suggest a few things. Number one is make sure that you are running on the test net and that you get on mainnet as soon as you can. One of our sort of mandates is that people need to have 90 days of history that we can look at to make sure that you've got good performance and that you've got the experience running an SSV node. Make sure that you've got things like your incorporation in order. We're going to want to look at that and be able to verify that you are who you say you are. Because that's part of being a verified operator, is some sense that we've done our homework and vetted you. And also build out your website, your public footprint. Make sure not only that we as a committee can verify who you are, but also when you're up and running, people who might want to use you as an operator, they're going to want to know who you are. So make sure that is looking good, and that people will be able to feel confident selecting you as their operator. So that's kind of where we are, what we've been doing, and we look forward to onboarding more of you after the launch.
Beautiful. Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you as well. We got a chance to catch up the other day, and it's amazing how much you guys are putting together behind the scenes. Very cool. Cool. Last but not least is Marko. Marko, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Will Taylor. Hey, everyone. I'm Marko. I'm the Dev Evangelist. Basically, my job is to make your lives easier. And I just want to present one quick tutorial. And this is meant more for operators, for you guys who are just starting with running an operator or thinking about it. I think this will be a good resource for you, additional resource. So let me show my screen. Okay. So we have an awesome SSV repo that you can find under the block staking organization. And here there are a lot of stuff in the repo. I have a whole walkthrough. Basically, you can see other projects and build your own LSD. But what is relevant for you guys, for operators, is I have put up a short tutorial how to basically set up your SSV node with execution client and beacon chain in around 10 minutes. Basically, I walk through the resources and all the different kind of stuff. And this is how I did my setup. And yeah, if you are doing your setup from scratch, I think this is a great way. Okay, so what is the way, how to do it? I do a video walkthrough, like a video, or you can just go through this tutorial. This video tutorial, if you see above, is walking you through setting up all the nodes. That means SSV nodes along with execution layer and beacon node. Using Docker and also setting up your server, which basically means your ports. If you want just to run your SSV node and you have your setup ready, already are running execution layer and beacon chain, I would suggest you to go into the official documentation. Let me get there. Official documentation. Okay. Here, and basically run it from here. If you, as I've said, if you want to run all of it and want to do it really fast and nice, I found the best way is using Docker. It's basically something that creates all the Dockers needed for and runs them automatically and manages the whole system. A lot of guys, you probably know this. Some guys may not. So I give it to you here. So there's a good way how to.
Can you zoom in just a touch? It's kind of difficult to see.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let me start here. I'll zoom this one. So yeah, running it using Docker. So I suggest you to follow this link and this tutorial here. What I have prepared here additionally to this setup is a setup of setting up your server, which basically means two scripts. You are usually set up under the root. So if you run this script, this will create a new user for you. And this other script will just update your Linux server to open the necessary ports. It's stuff, but it's useful if you are running it. And after this, you just clone the Eth Docker that I mentioned. You install it and you do config. And this Eth config will basically walk you through all the things you need to set up, like private, public key, like inputting the private key into the node setup, etc., etc. So yeah, you can think about this as like a master script on top of this. I walk you through everything in the video. One thing I wanted to mention is some gotchas. What are usually some problems? I also ran into it myself. When you generate the key pair, your private and public key for your node, it will give you an output that looks like this: public key and private key. When you are using VS Node, VS Code, and you are copying the private key, sometimes it will not include this last equal sign, which is problematic, what is one gotcha. Also, if we had other operators who are running into some problems, it usually is connected with their ports not being open. So make sure you have these. These are the specific ports for 13,001 and 12,001 are the specific ports for SSV node. So those are the two gotchas. There is another quick video if you want to migrate your node from V2. If you were running a node on V2 network and to the current V3 network, there is a short video tutorial how to do that. And finally, the best way, if we are gathering feedback, we want to make the documentation the best possible. And so if you have any feedback or any problems, reach out to SSV Discord in the operators general channel and some other stuff which are also could be helpful to you guys. I have done other video tutorials and I'm linking them here. Here the channel. So these are additional to the documentation. And I'm talking there, usually there is more information. So if you are new to the whole experience of SSV tooling, clusters, or registering stuff, these tutorials will give you more information. So yeah, that would be everything from my side. Back to you, Taylor.
Nice, great work. And a lot of these links are in the YouTube description. And if they're not in there yet, they'll be added shortly after the call. But thank you very much, Marko. We're reaching the tail end of the call now. So if people are interested in asking questions, now is the time. So I'm going to share my screen. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. I will take a pause now before we end the call to basically say a few couple of things. So as GBeast has mentioned, we are obviously very interested in working very closely with some of these different partners, and that leads to a lot of opportunities with some co-branding of social media posts. If that is you, then hopefully you'll be working very closely with the marketing folks, and we hope to obviously get some really cool announcements out with some co-branding in the relative near future. And we'll be reaching out either via myself or Ariel with some of the folks that we've already been in touch with, but I'm sure there'll be more to come. As Marko has mentioned, there's plenty of room in the Discord to be asking questions and getting lots of feedback. We're here to obviously help you, and I'm hoping that we can take some time to go over some questions right now. So let me see if there are any questions before we get too far along. I don't see anything immediately popping up. That's fine. Cool. Well, then last but not least, let me just share my screen so everybody has a chance to see it in writing. We'll be doing our next community call in the very near future. That'll be Monday, May 15th. So that's 1 week from today. We'll go over some of the updates to RC status. We'll give you a roadmap updates with some interesting dates peppered in there. And we'll also be adding, hopefully, some additional elements to the agenda that's related to some mainnet partners and some things that we're really aching to announce. But unless there are any other questions, we're going to close it out here. If you have any questions, now is the moment to throw it into the YouTube video. Don't see any crazy questions at this point. So without further ado, thank you, everyone, for turning up. And we look forward to seeing you at the community call coming up next Monday, the 15th. Thanks a lot. And thank you to all the speakers that stepped in, and looking forward to seeing everybody again real soon.